In this video, I want to talk about one pressing issue with my Fold 7. So this phone is amazing by design. I've got no problem with how this looks. In fact, in my unboxing, I showed how beautiful this phone is. And in this decade, this phone is by far the one phone that has gone through a massive upgrade in terms of design. Because Samsung have made the phone so thin compared to Fold 6, thinness is actually causing some issues. So for example, when you actually want to open the phone, it is so thin, I find it so hard to open, especially if you don't have any nail. So it's fine to open and use the phone on the main screen. I think I have no problem with that. This acts just like a bar phone would do. So there isn't many differences that you have between a standard phone and a Fold phone on a main screen. But when it comes to the Fold, I find it very hard to open it. You see there, I applied some pressure to open it, and once it's opened, it's completely fine. And then you close it by pressing sort of the bezel there. You've got a little bit of a bump in that corner for the hinge, so I've been using to close that. But my biggest problem comes from actually trying to open this device. It's really difficult to know when it's going to slip off your hand. If your hands are really greasy, let's say you're sweating a lot, it's a hot weather, and all of a sudden you try to open the phone as you do normally, it would slip. Your hand needs to be dry and needs to have some friction most of the time in order for you to smoothly open and close the phone. Otherwise, there is an element where there isn't enough grip in our hands to actually open this thing as quick as possible. The way how I found easy to open is actually rest this part of my thumb in between the space, which is quite hard for somebody who has a big fat thumb. Right, there we go. I opened it, and this becomes a way how I'm starting to use the phone. The other problem is I've seen people actually use the fingernail, right? So I don't have much of a nail. So people having fingernail are putting their nail in between the wedges. So I did hand this phone to a friend of mine to play around and see how they open it and whether they have a problem. And if you pay close attention here, let me bring this up. You see? So by inserting the nail into the phone, it's actually dented the paint. It's actually scuffed the paint mark. So I feel there is a dent for sure. I've tried to clean this as much as possible. So, and this white dot in here, once you see it, you won't unsee it. Now, I'm even more cautious of just putting something in there to open it. So it becomes a massive issue. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I read online putting cases on this phone makes it a bit more easier to open. The thinness of this device means that you can't really buy a case that is too big because it defeats the whole point, right? So when I look at the cases from Samsung, Samsung's actually only releasing cases. Not only they're expensive, I've got a video on actually loads of cases I have around here. I'll do a video after this, but Samsung's cases are, if you see here, it's only a back only case, right? So I've got one here, a really cheap one. It's a back only case. I've got loads of them, right? So let's try this one. So let's see what happens if you put a back only case and see if that helps the device. So let's fold this back up. Let's put this case and I'll come back to you quickly. I'm struggling to put this on because it's so thin. It's very difficult to actually put the case on, and I don't know what the right way to put the cases on. So the camera bezel's in. All right, cool. So the case is now back on. So there you go. This is fully on. So this is how the phone looks. If you have to buy the case that Samsung tells you to buy, so for example, oh my God. So if you buy a case that only has a back cover, then this is how it will look, right? Just assume the fact that it's same as Samsung. So I think the material then matters a lot because this one isn't silicone as the one that Samsung sells. And there are other ones that I have. So my next video will be covering vast amount of cases that I have for this phone. There's some cheap ones and some good ones. But even when you put a case in a back only case, it creates an uneven shape, right? Which makes it even more difficult for the hands to slip off. Now, the fact is that I've reduced the amount of room available to me, right? So you see, by having a single case on, it makes it so much difficult to open it. So once you open it, it's fine. You see here, I'm putting a lot of pressure on this finger to push it away. Some people say it's better to open from the left side instead of the right side. But if you go with the back case, there's no way you're opening on the left side like that. I've also noticed over time, the hinge has become slightly loose for me to move it. So my user case would go from using the phone like this to then putting this part of the finger in between the space and then moving that. What that also does is this is the only room I have to play around with, and this is where the volume rockers and the fingerprint sensors are. This issue is actually impacting me quite frequently because I can't open the phone as easy and quickly as I want. You see, that just slipped again one more time. So I'm trying to use this on the train in a crowded bus, and most of the time I'm going to end up using like that in the crowded areas because I'm just not confident doing that. Although there are cases that comes with the front right on top. So if you have the cases that have the front on top, then that becomes a different thing, because you see now you're creating yourself more room to open. I'll cover all of this in my next video when I go through the cases and how easy it makes it and what different textures on the screen and how they can sort of help you fold and unfold the devices. So far, beautiful phone. The only problem is to actually opening it as easily and quickly as possible. And I think a case is a really must. The other problem is once you do put them in, it's quite hard to take them out because it's so thin. And if you want to see my full review of this device, maybe 7 or 10 days later type of videos, do give the channel a subscribe, do like this video. Until I see you in the next one, take care.